It is the soldier. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us the freedom of press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us the freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us the freedom to demonstrate. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the 2020 Veterans Day Virtual Assembly. Veterans Day is a national holiday in America to celebrate and honor all of those who have served in our military. Since 1918, our nation has been honoring our veterans and the sacrifice they have made for our country. America's veterans are heroes.
Veterans exhibit traits every day of a hero, such as bravery, nobility, humility, selflessness, and compassion. We want to thank our veterans for their service to our nation and for the common good of all people. In today's assembly, we will be honoring our guest speakers, White River's very own Mr. Zachary McDonald and Mr. Barney Wagner. We hope you enjoy today's assembly as you help us honor our nation's heroes.
How's it going? My name is Zach McDonald. I'm the shop teacher here at White River High School. I was asked to give a speech for Veterans Day, and the theme is heroes. And I don't know what to say. I could tell you the story about me pulling my buddy out of a Humvee when he was unconscious and had both his shoulders broken, but that's kind of sad. I could tell you about all the firefights I've been in, but that's not school appropriate. I could tell you all these different stories about heroes and what they've done and why that means, or why that is important. But I think the bigger question is, it has to start with yourself. So my story kind of goes, let's go back to high school. I probably lived in the same type of environment you're living in. My father died when I was younger. I had a single mom. My house was not the best house on the block. And I didn't have any money to do anything after high school. And so somebody told me one time, shoot for the stars. Because when you fail, and you will, you're human, you'll land on the mountaintops, surpassing everybody after that point. Because they start climbing the mountain. You're going to shoot over them and land on top. So what does that mean? That means I have to make my own way. I have to be a hero for myself. So I joined the military. I didn't have money to pay for college. I didn't have anything to do after college or after high school, really. I had a job flipping burgers, but that wasn't going anywhere. So I signed up for the Army, went to basic training, did what I had to do, and then I went to Afghanistan twice. I was with the 101st, 1506 Infantry. Sometimes you got to be your own hero and make the path happen for yourself, because nobody's going to give it to you. Sometimes you have to go and make it happen.
To the servicemen who paid with their life to ensure your freedom again and to live without strife. Your sacrifice I commemorate in a humble way. In your memory, I celebrate on this Veterans Day.
On Veterans Day, we honor all who answered to a service call, soldiers young and soldiers old, fought for freedom, brave and bold. Some have lived while others died, and all of them deserve our pride. We're proud of all the soldiers who kept thinking of red, white, and blue. They fought for us and all of our rights. They fought through many days and nights, and though we may not know each name, we thank all veterans just the same.
Our veterans sacrifice so much for our nation and every one of us. When one becomes part of the U.S. military, they're putting their life on the line in order to protect our country, our rights, and our freedom.
It is not easy or simple serving our country in the way that they do. They are completely selfless, constantly putting others before themselves.
Our military heroes are selfless and devoted to their cause. Our veterans and troops are dedicated to protecting our nation from enemies foreign and domestic. We are so beyond thankful for our veterans.
A wise person once said that happiness doesn't come through selfishness, but through selflessness. Thank you for your protection.
Our veterans go through so much emotional and physical stress, whether it's hard training days or missing their daughter's ballet recital. Serving others is not an easy task and can take a hard toll on anyone.
Our veterans choose to serve our nation for the betterment of everyone, the most selfless act. Without them, we would not have the life we want, including our freedom and rights.
America is forever grateful and indebted for all of those who have served. Thank you for not only protecting, but inspiring all of us.
Thank you for showing us how to serve others and how to stay hopeful when the going gets tough. You are our heroes.
Veterans risk their lives every day for the freedom of Americans. Bravery is a trait for all veterans. Veterans are honored with a medal for their bravery.
The 5 highest-ranking military medals for bravery in combat include the Congressional Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, the Air Force Cross, and the Navy Cross, and the Silver Star Medal.
The Medal of Honor is the United States of America's highest and most prestigious personal military decoration that may be awarded to recognize U.S. military service members who have distinguished themselves by acts of valor.
Created in the wake of the Civil War, the Medal of Honor is awarded to those who risk their lives above and beyond the call of duty in actual combat against an armed enemy of the United States.
Veterans are recognized for their bravery with the earning of medals. Bernard Malamud, an American novelist, once quoted, "Without heroes, we are all just plain people, and we don't know how far we can go." Without the sacrifice of our veterans, we would not be sitting here today.
Their bravery is what led the United States to where we are today. On this Veterans Day, let us remember the service of our veterans and let us renew our national promise to fulfill our sacred obligations to our veterans and their families who have sacrificed so much that we can live free for.
Compassion is an emotional response to sympathy and creates a desire to help. And empathy is our feeling of awareness towards other people's emotions at an attempt to understand how they feel.
The veterans of the United States all have these 2 characteristics which helps them serve our nation and all the people in it.
Compassion and empathy are what drives them to fight for the greater good of not only the United States citizens, but also those who live in other countries.
In my eyes, empathy is a characteristic which can make somebody a good person, and that is something that everybody is born with and only something that only some people act upon.
When talking about compassion, a quote from Mary Davis is always relevant. We cannot heal the world today, but we can begin with a voice of compassion, a heart of love and kindness.
Thinking of compassion in this way is important when working towards helping people. This is exactly what our United States veterans have been doing and are doing.
Another important aspect of a hero is humility. To be humble is to do your job without any expectations of thanks, praise, rewards, or anything of that sort. Someone who is humble does what they do because it's important to them, not for any other motive.
A veteran doesn't do their job for any reason other than their natural drive to do the right thing. They've made the conscious effort to serve, the conscious effort to give up their own time and freedom in order to help the people all around them, whether they've met them or not.
I doubt you'd ever meet someone who served that boasts it. That's because they know that's not why they started the job. That drive mentioned earlier is what draws them to it, and knowing that they're out there making a difference is more than enough compensation for them.
Anyone who serves does it simply because they love our country and the people in it. That alone is enough for them to commit their time and freedom to serve.
The time and freedom that we all have is the result of the sacrifice our veterans make each and every day. And it's something that most of us take for granted. You have to remember that freedom is a privilege, and it's something that people in other countries don't all have.
We're incredibly lucky to have all of these brave men and women who are willing to give up some of their freedom in order to ensure that the rest of ours is protected.
Well, my name is Barney Wagner, and I served in the Vietnam War in the Navy, and I would like to talk a little bit about different parts of the aspects of that. In 1960, they re-energized the draft system, and the draft was that any male in the United States had to register with the draft. The Selective Service had to register with them before their 18th birthday. And Vietnam War came along, and they were having trouble trying to get enough people to volunteer for the war. So the draft was really tough on people. And if you got drafted, you would go active, usually the Army, and then you would have 4 years inactive for a total of 6 years. If you joined, typically you could pick what branch of service you went into, and then many times you got a chance to pick out what job classification you wanted. I graduated when I was 17 years old, and when I turned 18, the draft came after me, and I had 1 week to either join or be drafted. So I joined the Navy because we're a Navy family. My dad was a pilot in World War II, and my uncle was also in the Navy. And so I joined right before I was drafted. And my interest, what I wanted to do in the Navy, is communications and electronics. And fortunately, I was able to get into that category. I was, before my training, I went to boot camp right away after I joined. And boot camp is combat training, and it's really tough. I spent 8 weeks there, and some of it on the firing range, some of it, like once, for instance, we had to climb up a bunch of stairs and we had to jump off a 35-foot platform into the water. And for somebody like me that wasn't too good a swimmer, that was a little difficult. It was all in preparation if you had to abandon ship at sea. And so anyway, after boot camp training, the Navy sent me to school for 6 months. And I was in school learning communications and electronics. And back then, they still used the Morse code, which is kind of hard to believe. But it was, the schooling was very, very good. Taught me a lot about the communications equipment, Morse code. I could do it pretty fast. Then after school, I was assigned to a ship, and I was on the McCormick, which is a guided missile destroyer. It's 400 feet long and 47 feet wide. And it was a lean, mean fighting machine. It had a lot of firepower on it. And it took us 2 months to get over to Vietnam. We stopped at many ports of call, and so we could get supplies and we could refuel our ship and so forth. And there's a couple things on our way over to Vietnam. There's a couple times that we'd refuel out at sea where our ship would come along, a big tanker ship, and they would put a high line over to our ship and fill us full of fuel. And I've got a couple pictures of that. It's amazing, a small ship like ours out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Talk just a second about shipboard life. It wasn't like a cruise by any means. It was very confined, and in that space of that ship, we had 300 people on there, 300 sailors. And everything you owned on that ship was in your locker, and it was a 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot. That's your clothing, that's everything was in that compartment. And as far as sleeping facilities, they would have the racks 18 inches apart, and they would be 5 high. So, and they would hang by chains, so you would have to climb up to where your rack was and slide in. And once you got in your rack, you had to put a strap across your chest and a strap across your legs, because it was very rough out at sea, and the ship was just going all over. A lot of people got seasick right at first, but then they got over it. And the food on board the ships, many times they had the galleys going where you could have food, and consisted of powdered eggs and powdered milk and things like that, which is quite different than bigger ships. But when it got real rough out, we had what they called sea rations, and it was a little box, and inside that little box they had food for the day, and you would eat out of that box. Wasn't very tasty, I can tell you. And everyone had their duty stations on the ship, and I was in radio and communications, so I was in charge of the radio room. And we had about 8 sailors that were in the radio room at that time. When I went through my training, I also received a top secret clearance. And a top secret clearance is very hard to get. To get my top secret clearance, the investigators talked to my school, talked to my teachers, my principal, talked to my family, my neighbors, and so forth for me to get a top secret clearance. And on this ship with 300 people, there were only 2 people that had a top secret clearance, and that was myself and the captain. So when a top secret message come in, I had a gun on my hip. I always carried a .45 revolver, and when a top secret message came in, I had to get everybody out of the radio room, and I decoded the message myself, and then I was escorted up to the captain. And it didn't matter if it was 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, I had to wake up the captain, and he had to sign for the message. There was probably 4 or 5 top secret messages a day that would come in. And so the radio room was really, at that time, pretty technical, because the ship I was on was built in 1955. So it was still a pretty new ship. The last port that we stopped at before Vietnam was very stressful, because all of us aboard the ship, we somewhat knew what was next. And when we entered the waters of Vietnam, we were 20 miles out at sea, and we started taking on fire from the shore. And they could shoot 20 miles to our ship, and I've got some pictures that they shot all around us, and we were zigzagging to get into the Tonkin Gulf, and they shot at us 150 times and missed each time, thankfully. One shot would have sunk our ship, and all 300 of us would be out in the water. So our ship had 2 big guns on it that would go 13 miles. So once we were within the 13-mile range, we opened up fire, and we could pinpoint the coordinates of where the fire was coming from shore with our electronics. And so when we were within 13 miles, we just let go with all the firepower we had. We arrived into the Tonkin Gulf, and we stayed there for several months, And as I say, we had a lot of firepower. Many times we would get calls and they would give us coordinates, and we would shoot over our troops to the other enemy on the other side of our troops, because we could shoot 13 miles inland. And the whole sky lit up. It was really something. One thing that I have to say is the United States had an idea that they were going to spray chemicals to kill the foliage in Vietnam. And they would do that by airplane, typical to crop dusting, that type of thing. Well, within that chemicals for the foliage, and they sprayed millions and millions of gallons of it, and it was very deadly, and it had a lot of carcinogens in it. And carcinogens is cancer agent, causes cancer and other diseases. So they called it Ancient Orange. So when you looked up at the sun in the middle of the day, the sun would be orange because of all those chemicals. And after the time spent there, we had a R&R time, and the ship voted to go to Australia. So we went to Australia for 2 weeks and just kind of all unwound a little bit, because we all had our life on the line for fighting for our country. And then we finally ended up back in the United States, and the Vietnam War was very unpopular, very unpopular. The reason we were in Vietnam was to stop the spread of communism. And a lot of people felt different about it at home, and that's why they had to have the draft to get people in. And so when we returned home, we didn't have a homecoming at all. And there were no parades, there were nothing. And the people were burning the flag. They were calling us baby killers for being over there. And it was really difficult emotionally to handle that after we put our lives on the line for our country. And here's a couple statistics that I'd like to share. 2/3 of the people that got killed in Vietnam, around the total of 60,000 people, 2/3 of them were 22 years and younger. And that was tough to swallow. And there are only 28% of us Vietnam veterans left alive today. And most of it is due to medical issues. A lot of people died of cancer, a lot of people died from lung disease, all related back to this carcinogens and this chemicals they were spraying. And so with only 28% of us left, you don't see a lot of Vietnam veterans anymore. And when you see a Vietnam veteran, like I'm one, and if I see another Vietnam veteran, we always shake hands, and the first thing we say is welcome home, because we never did have a welcome home. And myself, I've been fighting cancer for 13 years from this Ancient Orange that was sprayed in Vietnam. So that's pretty much my story.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow, between the crosses row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead, short days ago. We lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with our foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if ye faith break us who die. We shall not sleep though poppies glow in Flanders fields.
Today is a day we honor our nation's heroes, the men and women who have shown us how to be brave, use empathy, be selfless, stay positive, and noble. Our veterans that have served our country have done a job that very little can do.
As you leave our virtual assembly today, thank a veteran, whether it is someone you know very well or a stranger you see at the store. We need to honor our veterans every day, not just Veterans Day. From White River High School, we want to thank all of our veterans and men and women serving our country right now, and thank you for being our heroes.